Welcome to the CMO Spotlight. I want to welcome Catherine LaCour, who's the Chief Marketing Officer for Blackbaud. Thank you for being with me, Catherine.
Thanks for having me, Joe. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So, Catherine, I wondered if you could begin by telling us a little bit about Blackbaud and what Blackbaud does, and then maybe step back and tell us a little bit about your journey there. I know you've been there for a long time, I think almost 12 years.
Yes.
But so I want to hear a little bit about the company and then your path to Blackbaud and then what you do there now.
Great. Well, yeah, I can't believe it's been 12 years by the way, it's gone by in a blink of an eye, which I think is a good thing and really speaks to the company and the culture we have here. But Blackbaud, for those that don't know, we are the world's leading cloud software company powering social good. So what that means is we help social good organizations drive their missions with technology and data. So when you think about the social good community, that includes nonprofits, foundations, companies, education institutions, healthcare organizations, as well as the individual change agents who support all of them. So, for me, and part of the reason I have been here for what's in this day and age so long, is, I have the unique opportunity to, bridge my passion for social good and my passion for engaging people and creating connections through marketing. And that's a really cool opportunity. I think really just a lot of people don't have that opportunity to bring those two together in a way that I do. So as the Chief Marketing Officer for Blackbaud, I was appointed the CMO in 2018, and I'm in charge of all things marketing. So all the fun stuff, whether that's brand, product marketing, all of our demand gen, our lead generation, all of our go-to-market. I also founded and started our Blackbaud Institute, which is the arm of Blackbaud where we put all of our research out into the market for free. So again, we really want to walk the walk here and support the social good community. And this is our way to give back and give, out research that helps the entire community grow and move forward.
Nice. So tell me a little bit about your career path. I know you all are based in Charleston, South Carolina, and I don't know if you grew up in Charleston, but I think you went to school in Charleston and then got your MBA. So tell us about your path.
Sure. Well, I'm a born and raised Charlestonian. You may not be able to tell that from my accent, but after a few glasses of wine, my mom starts coming out. But I did study business here at College of Charleston. And then I got my master's from Thunderbird. So in international business, my MBA. And it's funny, Doug Conant, from Campbell's. I love your life story is your leadership story. And for me, that really resonates because my opportunity, I had amazing opportunities come to me through going to Thunderbird. And one of those opportunities that really has led me down the path to where I am today was an opportunity to work for the United Nations in Kenya. That really started me off early, wanting to marry social good, wanting to, make an impact, seeing people on the front lines doing that with my love of marketing, right? Which is frankly the greatest job out there because we get to marry right brain, left brain, this really creative fun with this data-driven, more strategic function. So I was able to move around a bit. So after being in Europe and Kenya and Africa, I moved to the Bay Area during the dot-com madness in the late 80s. So
to become a millionaire, an instant millionaire.
I mean, on paper at least, for a minute I was. And worked for some startups out there. And then as that was sort of busting, I moved over to DC, Washington, DC. And there I worked for a strategic marketing PR firm, an education company. And that while I was there, that's where I was recruited for Blackbaud for a marketing position. And again, brought everything kind of full circle again, working in marketing for a tech company to drive social impact. I would just say I'm really grateful for my role. The team, Mike Giannone, who's our CEO, has just been so great to work for. I've learned so much from him and the rest of the leaders at Blackbaud, and I just love the work we're able to do.
I love it. I have a friend who is this chief marketing officer of a pretty major nonprofit. And I remember when he left the corporate world and he said, I just want to use my powers for good instead of evil. And so, and he's able to fulfill his mission, to your point, marrying the marketing parts of your interest with the doing good in the world and helping the world is a nice place to be. So congratulations. It seems like it's a perfect fit for your interests.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just been a blast. It really has been.
Excellent. Well, I'm curious if there's any advice that either you wish that you'd gotten when you were younger, or maybe you would give to somebody that's earlier in their career, just starting out in marketing?
Oh, I love this question. So when I think about it, I'd say my like knee-jerk quick answer is get a mentor and a coach early, early, early. And the reason I say that is when I did get an executive coach who just was such, I mean, she was like my Gandhi. She was amazing. But one of the things she taught me that I really lean into today, and frankly, I coach all the people who work for me or anybody I mentor, was about kind of understanding your sphere of influence and really being intentional about relationships. And excuse me, because it all comes down to relationships. So whether it's with work colleagues or with customers, disagreements can be so much more easily navigated if you have a strong, trusting foundation. And, I think that if you're really strategic and intentional about that, like we make it hard for ourselves sometimes, I think, in the corporate world, harder than it needs to be. And I think if we really focus, and I actually coach people to write it down, like who within the organization, who do you influence and who is influencing you? And then what are those relationships that you need to grow, to build, continue to nurture? And then I'd say, just for anybody, and this I've always been something I've leaned into, is just support each other. I think that is the best advice I can give. And it doesn't mean that you don't potentially compete with somebody for a role or that there isn't conflict or disagreements. It just means that we all handle ourselves respectfully. We do it respectfully. We are in the room together. We're on the same team. Be there for each other, amplify each other, and help each other shine. And I really believe in the rising tide rises all boats. And I think that, if you marry that with a really focused intention on building trusting relationships, then you're going to want to go to work every day and really enjoy your job and the people that you work with.
Yep. Well, that's great career advice, but it's also good marriage advice too.
It is.
It works. Relationships are important to us. And I think even more so for marketers than maybe other disciplines. If you're a technologist and your sole focus is writing code, it may be different kinds of relationships, but relationships are the most important, probably, asset that we have.
It is, when it comes down to the communication, right? At the end of the day. And if you're working on those relationships, chances are you're talking more, you're communicating more. And that's what it's about, right? You want to bring people along on your journey, whether it's a strategic initiative or, whether it's a personal one. And I think that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Those connections.
Absolutely. I love it. So I believe that everybody has a superpower. And so I'm curious what people would say your superpower is.
Okay, I love this question. And I love it because I actually always ask my team this too. So thank you for asking.
Oh, good.
Now, my personal superpower, and my husband would tell you this, is my sense of smell. I won't go into details, but I have a very, very powerful sense of smell, which is good sometimes and bad sometimes. But professionally, I would say my superpower is identifying talent and bringing that talent together to build a high functioning team, high performing team. And I have one now, which I'm so grateful for. And I just think that has become more important in today's business environment, right? We are often asked to make quick decisions. We are often dealing with complex issues, and particularly in the remote world we live in today, right? And with that remoteness, comes culture and morale being so important in an organization. And I really believe that you need a leadership team that's modeling the behavior that you want, that's showing true empathy and caring, that's having that open and transparent communication we were talking about, and having productive conflict. And so, if I want to have that culture on my marketing team, and frankly, in the overall organization of Blackbaud, I need my leadership team to live that. I need to live that. And so, I spend a lot of time with my team. We spend a lot of time focused here. And I'm really proud of how we've come together and how we lead as a team. So that's a long answer, but that'd be my superpower.
That's a great answer. And it's not surprising to me, given your answer to the last question about, building a foundation and focusing on, trust and communication and those things, that building strong teams is key to success, because I don't think any of us, particularly in marketing or just in business in general, can succeed alone.
No, we cannot.
Yeah. So I'm curious, we're in the time and place in the world where we're hopefully exiting pandemic days and getting back to some normalcy
Yes.
of some kind. I'm curious just what challenge outside of pandemic and working remotely and all the things that come with that, what challenge from a marketing perspective are you facing that that's your top of mind for you right now?
Well, I'm going to stick with this theme, I think, because as soon as you said that, and talking about the largely remote and very noisy world that we live in, I think the biggest challenge for us as marketers is creating those authentic connections. And then engaging those connections and spurring them or having them want to take that action with you. So whether that's as simple as attending a webinar or going as far as buying your product, all the way to becoming an advocate, right? That full life cycle. And I think it's very challenging time to get one to show up authentically and get those connections and get through the noise, right? And my my team, we're super focused on delivering an outstanding experience for our customers at Blackbaud. And that's throughout the entire life cycle of a company, because that's another cool thing about marketing, right? Is that marketing starts at nurturing right before they're a customer, and then they become a customer, and we engage them, we help, and then we engage the customers through value content, we help them realize their value of the solutions, whatever solution they're using that you sell. And then ultimately we're helping our customers, reach their mission, in our case, to build a better world. And frankly, you cannot do that at scale if you don't have those connections and you don't have customers who want to be on the journey with you. And I think today that's probably the most important thing. And it really does come down to brand, right? Do you have an authentic brand, and do your customers resonate with that? So I think for me, that's hard today. And you have to be really creative about how you break through the noise and have somebody want to interact with you.
Yep. And I will say though, I think it's nice to work for a brand that does stand for something, because I think consumers are more careful about the brands that they want to be a part of and associate with, and having mission helps cement relationship with a brand versus no mission. And it feels like Blackbaud certainly has strong mission.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it there, right? I mean, I think companies that have a higher purpose, have a mission, perform better. And frankly, in today's, as we know, very competitive recruiting environment, the workforce wants to work for companies that have a mission as well. And so again, happy employees equal happy customers, and you really want them to be driven as well. So in my mind, that is so critical. It's that full circle.
I'm curious if there's a brand that you haven't worked on, you never worked on or worked for, that you really admire, and why you admire that brand.
There are a lot, and I could probably say Amazon, since I literally just saw the guy come to my door. I won't. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see him walk up. Nike. And first of all, super cool brand, right? It is a great example in my mind of bringing together excellent products with a deeply resonant brand promise, talking about brand, right? And, and when you think about Nike, what is that promise? It's, they want to inspire every athlete, right, in the world, and frankly, make you believe that if you have a body,
just do it,
you can be an athlete. Just do it.
Yeah.
And that flows through everything, right? Every facet of their execution, from product to campaigns. And by the way, the products are great. I love their workout gear. And, I think they do a good job, and they do a lot of good back. I love the way they've leaned in into the social context recently as well. I think that's very brave of them. And you've seen they've lost customers, they've gained customers, but they have done what is true to their brand, and they have held very, very close to that. And I really respect what they do.
I like their overall, I think you stated this really well, which is, it's not just do it. I mean, the thing that's behind, and I don't even know if just do it is still their main tagline, but it's the idea that you too can be an athlete. You don't have to be an Olympic athlete. You don't have to be a professional athlete. You can throw on a pair of Nike running shoes and go for a run, and then you too could be an athlete also.
That's right.
It's very inclusive, to say anybody could do it, right? I like that. So that brings me to just, I'm curious where you find inspiration, either for your team or for you. Like, where do you find inspiration?
Well, this is a really easy question in that, kind of stating back at the beginning what we do at Blackbaud, right? I mean, just seeing our customers succeed, forward or achieve their missions. We power what we call an ecosystem of good. And so this is this idea that we're connecting people and causes around the world. And so when we see that come to life, and we know we had a part in helping good take over, helping build a better world. I mean, that's what inspiring for our team. I mean, that's why we walk through that proverbial door every day, or the literal door, for those going in the office. And, I mentioned Mike Giannone, our CEO, one of the things that is very important to him is this. And, we hold all hands meetings and regularly every quarter, and we always have a customer there. And part of it is we just want to make sure that every employee really understands, no matter what you do in the organization, how they tie to the income and the outcome, and impact that we're having in the world and with our customers. And, we want, somebody to go home. So if you're an engineer writing code and maybe you have a partner, a spouse or a family that doesn't understand that, they're not going to talk about what they wrote. They're going to say, oh my gosh, I just had World Wildlife in, and let me tell you about the campaign they did to save the baby seals. Or,
Wow.
I wrote, this code today for our individual fundraising. And this gentleman in England has raised millions and millions of dollars to help, healthcare workers. And he's, 90, and he was walking, so many steps every day. So we want them to make that connection. And I think that's, I think we've done, it's easy, right? Because of who we serve. And again, I think that's what inspires us. And that's why we all come to work at Blackbaud.
I love that. So what are the values that either you want to demonstrate as a leader or you demand in people that join your team or that might join your team?
Yeah. So this is such a good question. I'm a big believer in value-based leadership first. So I appreciate the question, because I think that fundamentally is something that all leaders need to think about. Like, what are your values and how does that define who you are as a leader and how you lead? So really appreciate the question, Joe. For me, I'm believe in servant leadership. So being a servant leader. And, I think that when you're growing up, there's this idea of a traditional leader. Somebody at the top of the food chain, the boss, right? And, for me, kind of leadership is about empowerment, right? It's about empowering my team, mentoring them, developing their talents, not only for the greater good, but for the best results. Like, that's what's brilliant about this, right? Like, we actually get really good results when we empower our people and have, create space where they can be successful. And, that's my job. My job is to coach, to create that space, because I'm going to be only as successful as the people who work for me. And, I mentioned this idea of supporting each other and shining. And this idea of shine theory, I shine when you shine. I think that good leaders help lift others up. And that's the type of atmosphere, again, that I want to cultivate for my team. And so that's the type of leader that I try to show up as.
Great.
And that means feedback both ways, by the way. Like, that's one of the things I really want, is that dialogue back and forth to help me be that leader, which is important.
So I'm imagining that a backstabby kind of I don't think backstabby is a word, but a backstabby kind of person probably wouldn't last long in your team. Like, that's just not the kind of people that you want to have as part of your team.
No. I mean, for me, when I'm mentoring or coaching my team, right? When I spend time with my team and help develop them as leaders, like, for me, and back to this idea of the high performing team we talked about, right, earlier, and supporting, like, that to me is what I want them to do for their people, right? And so no back channeling. We need open dialogue. We may disagree in the room, but when we leave, we're in, vigorous agreement. But that means listening and learning, setting clear expectations. I think, I want to be, and I ask my leaders to be an empathetic leader, but still hold people accountable, and they can coexist. And so that to me is really important, and kind of how I would, want my team to show up. and so yeah, I don't the dramas, I mean, and look, we're humans, and my job as a manager, as a leader, sometimes as coach, sometimes teacher, sometimes friend, sometimes parent, we all know that as leaders.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that things don't pop up, but in my mind, it's about that open dialogue, that transparent dialogue, that feedback. And if you are truly and authentically caring in the success of that person, you can almost overcome any other relationship or connection issues. If we're having them among the team, you work through them. And so that's a big focus for me.
100%. So here at Setup, we're marketing matchmakers, and that often means that we connect brands and marketing agencies together.
Yeah,
and so we sort of live in the space between. We're not an agency, we're not a brand, but we often are connecting them together. I'm just curious how you generally work with agencies at Blackbaud. Do you have one agency of record relationship that does a lot of different things? Do you have lots of specialists? How do you work with agencies today?
Sure. Well, I'll note. So we actually do have an internal agency in Blackbaud. So we've branded it. It's our creative house that works under my brand leader. But we do have outside agencies. And look, I mean, I think one of the most important things that an outside agency provides, in addition to capacity, right? Because we do use outside agencies for capacity issues, right?
Not enough arms and legs to do everything you want to get done.
I mean, right. I think that we as marketers always live in a resource constrained world, whether that's people or dollars. It's just a fact of life. But I think one of the most important assets that an outside agency can provide is that outside eye, right? And so, we use agencies to help us see what we're not seeing, right? And that's across our overall marketing function. So that could be our market research or in our digital work. We want to bring bold ideas. We want to push our thinking on our messaging, our marketing strategy. And, I always tell my team and this is not my quote, but, there's no forwardness in bringing people together to bless the status quo. Right. And so I really I encourage my teams to take risk, fail fast, fail forward. And we look to agencies to help push us, right? That's what I want. I want somebody to come and just push us and give us, ideas and challenge the way we're doing things. On the creative side, we maintain relationships with a select group of digital agencies and creative freelancers. So, these groups really act as an extension of our team, and they help provide that insight, that strategy, and like I said, in the production area for us in our marketing teams.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of the things that you lean on outside support for. Are there certain things you would never, ever outsource and that you feel like you need to own them within the Blackbaud team?
Yeah, I mean, so brand, right? I mean, I would say our relationship with our customers that's central to our brand. And so anything that's maybe customer centric, right, we'll continue to steward that. But it doesn't mean we can use agencies. We'll just be very involved. And we're going to get insight and support. We want that outside in look from external agencies, but we don't and won't fully outsource brand strategy or what I'd call maybe core identity work. It's our internal teams who hold deep knowledge of our Blackbaud goals, historical data, knowledge of the historical data and company strategy. And I think this knowledge is crucial to executing high level brand work, because I was about to say, but really you need, right, that brand to be authentic to who you really are as a company. And so we depend on internal teams for that. Does not mean that we don't use external agencies or outsource there. Because we do, because again, we may have a perception. We want to understand how we're perceived. So we do a lot of research as well. But, what we use the in-house team is, and we've done that core identity work, by the way. Once it's done, it's kind of done. Yeah, you may, like, we're in the work right now tweaking our kind of colors a little bit. Like, there's tweak work. Right. Once that's, landed, what we do is we then create templates and frameworks that allow us to really effectively work with outside agencies and maintain our brand integrity while doing so. And so I think that outside agencies play a very important role and forwarding, the ideas within a company and often executing them as well. You just want to make sure that you've got a really core understanding and framework for that brand integrity so that you make sure that you are showing up as you'd like to show up in the world.
Yep. I appreciate that. And it makes total sense that, there's certain pieces that you need to own your core identity and relationship with the customer, and you can still get input from external sources, but at the end of the day, it's your customer, it's your relationship, it's your brand. You got to live with it long after the agency may have gone and worked on another client, right?
That's right. That's right.
So I want to shift gears a little. So as marketers, we're often viewed as a cost center, versus a value driver. And so I'm curious, how do you show the value of marketing to the non-marketing functions within the rest of the C-suite or the rest of the organization? How do you show the value of marketing?
Yeah, gosh, we talk a lot about CAC, customer acquisition costs, and I start developing a little twitch sometimes.
Yeah,
there's so much more when you talk about retention and brand and all of that stuff. But I'd say first we start with looking at our stakeholders within the company as our customers, just like we would external customers, right? We want it to be a positive customer experience when they're working with us. And that means just like with our our external customers, we have to show our value. And the way you do that is data. As a marketing organization, we are a very driven, marketing sciences driven organization. So we spend a lot of time, energy, and investment in building that part of our organization up. And so, we know how our go-to-marketing activities are supporting the business, whether it's retention or whether it's new customer acquisition. And, we're constantly tracking and reporting on how we're engaging with customers, how we're building customer loyalty, how we're creating stronger lifetime value for our business. And, that investment that we've made in our marketing sciences and in our automation to be able to track this more efficiently and effectively, we're taking that and we're showcasing it across the company. I mean, it's cobbler kids, marketing
right.
organizations aren't always great at marketing themselves internally.
Right.
And,
no.
I think for me, I'm always talking about my team. I want to strive to be transparent on our learnings, because you don't always have wins, right? Particularly if you're a risk-taking organization, but you celebrate the wins when you have them. You share the learnings when you don't have them, and then you get buy-in and visibility early and often to strategic initiatives. And I think that's gone a long way to serving us. I mean, we treat kind of all our major investments and initiatives as business cases. I've got an amazing CFO who I remember in my interview, he was talking to me about brand, and I literally was like taking the phone away, like, oh, I'm talking to a CFO right now, but he gets it, which is great. But he gets it. So he wants to, know the data, and, he wants to get in there with us. And so we need to make sure that we have that. And I think, when I talked about how just so fun and brilliant marketing is, and those two sides, that data piece, I think, as we all know, this is not news, right? But that data, that marketing science piece is, you have to have that now, right? Because you're viewed as a cost center, which we are, right? And you've got to have it so that you can show the value at the end of the day. So for me, that has been a focus area of investment for us. Probably if what keeps me up at night, or what are the areas going into next year that I'm most focused on, if that's a future question, I'm stealing it from you. It would be this, how to build out my sciences, the whole digital and sciences piece. And one, just so we can get the data, but two, digitally, how are we transforming our go-to-market, back to the engagement piece, right? What's challenging for marketers today, and doing so in a way that, that reaches them and makes them want to interact with us.
Love it. Well, so you said something that I'm going to highlight, which is we celebrate the wins, but we share the learnings from losses. So I'm curious if there was a particular program or campaign or something that you launched that either was a huge flop, and it taught you something really important that you needed to learn and that you needed to share, or it was a huge success and you needed to really celebrate it with a larger team. And I think both can be equally as interesting. So pick whichever, but tell us about one and what you learned from it.
Well, so much more fun to talk about the good ones. I'm trying to think of a loss, because I mean, we definitely have learnings that we have, and I guess to that point right now, we're really learning with every campaign because of all the technology improvements that we've made. And, so we've got just so much more data at our fingertips. And, one thing we really learn, we look at each campaign to really look at how our buyers interacting with us, how they're engaging with us, where they're coming from. And so, we're pretty focused on every campaign and learning, but, one cool campaign, that I was so proud of that we did, and it was at the height of COVID. It was kind of around embracing change and resiliency, building resiliency in our sector, because, we had, zoos that were completely closed. It's hard to bring in money, and it's, or donors. And you think of like a children's museum or any of those, and in our arts and cultural space, and in the nonprofits, you couldn't hold a run or a walk, or you couldn't hold your, annual event in person. So, I think we saw our customers going through a massive transformation, digital transformation. And we put together a campaign where we offered toolkits and webinars and tip sheets, all helping them navigate that overnight digital transformation they were going through, and how to engage those donors, those new donors that they were required now. And all of that really comes down to looking at content through the value lens, right? We don't put content out for content's sake. And I think we were so focused on the content that was really going to move the needle for them. I mean, we had the highest level engagement on some campaigns that we've ever had on webinar series. And then one other thing we did was we created brand slides, COVID quick response, I'd call it brand slides, for webinars, for virtual events. We provided brand guidelines for a multitude of COVID marketing activities. So while this was kind of a point in time, we didn't just put campaigns out, we actually took it all the way through. Here's how Blackbaud, the brand, is going to show up, whether it's how we name things, how we message, how we position against this. We worked with our marketing team, so whether that was vertical, our demand gen, or our product teams. We worked with our customer success teams and external experts on what is the right content, what are the podcasts, what are the blogs. And we saw, if I remember, we saw well over 100% increase in traffic on just one of our blogs. Wow. So, I think kind of taking a truly holistic approach, again, brand all the way down, showed a lot of success during what was a pretty tumultuous time for our customers.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I know that nonprofits particularly had a difficult time, particularly early in COVID, where everybody was unsure of what was happening with the future. And it's great if you were able to provide them with some resources and tools that could help them continue with their missions, even though they're, in some cases, punched in the mouth,
Oh,
based
absolutely.
on, yeah.
I mean, they had to rethink it. I mean, so, we've really cool things like a virtual prayer wall, right? Because we have faith-based customers, ways to donate online, and, to hold events and runs, virtually. So, that ability to hold an event was really important. So, yeah, I think that, again, back to what inspires us and us really wanting to be in the boat with our customers, I think it was a time for us to really lean in and support them in different ways.
I love it. All right, I've got a couple of fun questions to close out the conversation. Okay. The first is there a band or a movie or a book or a quote that really inspires you? Or a team, a sports team? I mean, whatever.
I have watched all kinds of random sports. I'm the sports person in my house, but so a quote. This is my go-to. So it's an African proverb, but this is probably, people have heard it before, but if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. And, for me, talking about building teams and this idea of, the rising tide. And, I talked about, the shine theory. I don't shine if you don't shine, and that shine theory was created by Aminatou Sow and Ann Friedman. And it was this idea around, making a commitment to asking, would we be better as collaborators than competitors? And the answer is yes, like almost always yes. And yeah, I'd say as a woman leader, I am inspired by how much further we as women can go if we go together. And as a leader, I'm inspired as how much further we can go together versus go individually. And so for me, we're in this together. We are a team. And, I think that's really kind of an underpinning of my kind of leadership and what kind of, inspires and how I show up every day.
I love it. All right. So last question is outside of family, because I think that's the default answer to this question is my family. But outside of your family, where do you find joy outside of work?
Oh, this is, gosh, great question. So, okay, besides shoes and champagne.
Hey, that could be part of it. Yeah.
um, so, again, I'd say for me, it's really about giving back in my community. So I sit on the board of the Coastal Community Foundation here in Charleston, and the Coastal Community Foundation is really focused on creating communities rich in equity and opportunity and well-being. And I've just really enjoyed the work that I've been able to do with them. I also work for the Women's Refugee nonprofit. And I actually chair both of their external communications committees on both of those organizations. And I am part of the Aspen Institute Global Leadership Network. And in South Carolina, it's a group called Liberty Fellowship. And through that work, I was involved in a project with Together SC, which Together SC is a nonprofit here in South Carolina that brings together nonprofits in the state. And worked with them on a video and some work around changing the narrative around race and paving the way forward in South Carolina. And so, I think that for me, bringing joy is, again, being a little bit more on the front lines and really helping build a richer community. And so I look for ways to do that. And when I'm not doing that, I'm running or working out. And my husband and I adopted 2 cats within the past 2 years. So I'm officially a crazy cat mom. And so that's their family. So I guess maybe I'm breaking the rules in answering that question, but that's what brings me joy outside of.
Well, it's funny because during pandemic, I think we all adopted something, whether it's a new habit or a new skill or animals or something, which is great. I think, everybody sort of reflected and tried to find something that would give them joy. And it's great that you found some of those things. So Catherine LaCour, Chief Marketing Officer of Blackbaud, thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation. I really appreciate our time.
Thank you for having me. It was a blast to talk to you.